Hey guys, project-zodiac here. I'm back with another video, and this is another movie review. And in this video, we are finally reviewing the new Karate Kid movie, Karate Kid Legends. And I do have a lot to say about this movie. The first section is going to be spoiler-free. Second section is going to be spoiler-filled. If you just want to quickly know what my thoughts are, I would say that for me, Karate Kid 1 and 2 are tied as my favorite in the series. Karate Kid Legends, I would say, is my second favorite. Um, if we put if we don't put Karate Kid 1 and 2 together in first place, then I would say Karate Kid 1 is first, second is second, and then Legends is third. But because I just really love part 1 and 2 so much for different reasons and just the way that they complement each other, I do put them together in first place. So that's why Karate Kid Legends is my second favorite Karate Kid movie. How does it compare to Cobra Kai? Since that's not a movie, but let's say if it was a very long movie, how would I compare it? Then I would put it in third place and Cobra Kai's second. And there's specific reasons why. Um, so let's just go into the spoiler-free section, which is this movie is amazing. It makes you kind of feel like you are watching a modern day tournament. They do some things that are different in the Karate Kid universe of the films and the show for Cobra Kai, and I love that. And I'll talk about that in the spoilers section. But that particular thing also caused the pacing for it to be a little bit off. So some of the pacing with it I thought could have been balanced a little bit better, especially because of Mr. Han and Daniel. I'll talk a little bit more about that in my spoilers, but I wish we just got more of them. And that particular different creative thing that they do with the movie does impact their time in the movie as well. So that's as much as I can say about that without going to spoilers, which I'll talk about later. For the new character Lee, I thought he was really good. I did think he was gonna be a little bit of a problematic kid, kind of just like trying to find his way. And so I was actually surprised to see that he wasn't. He was just a pretty cool dude who, just likes to focus and clear his mind through fighting. But the trailers kind of made it seem like he would be, like Daniel and Mr. Han have like to go and train Lee because of him being in problems and complications and things like that. So I do think that would have been a little bit more interesting. And that's similar to what they did with Robbie in Cobra Kai. Uh, but so I do wish they would have done something similar to that here, but they did do that already with Robbie. What they do here though is still pretty cool. And it does still reflect the series as a whole. It's a kid going to a different country or facing a different life change. In this case, for example, when we look at Julie, it was her parents' death. When we look at Dre, it was moving to China. So all of the Karate Kid movie main characters all were going through something and karate helped them. So I thought that was interesting in how they handled it for Lee. He really is just doesn't want to be in the US, and he just feels a bit distant and has some traumas. And I think that the traumas that they gave him was really well done and also a bit sad. So I really, and again, I'll talk about that in the spoilers. So I really liked how they handled Lee overall. And him and the girl in the movie, the love interest, I thought they did pretty well together. And without really saying too much spoilers, the other supporting characters, I thought they did pretty good too. Now, for the villain, okay, so there's Daniel even says this in the movie. Oh, I've dealt with hot-headed guys before, because this villain is just another hothead that's a jerk. But what I will say about this villain that's a hothead that's a jerk, for example, we had the bullies in Karate Kid 3. I forgot his name. but he was a jerk. He was hot-headed too, um, and yeah, he was very threatening. But that's just because he was doing all of that just so that he could get money. So he was very egotistical. Sorry, he was very egotistical in a way. And then we had chosen, I think that's his name. I keep forgetting, from the Karate Kid 2, where he was also a bigger threat. And Johnny was just misguided, but Chosen was definitely a threat. But he really just did all of that due to the way that he was raised. Um, and just his own mindset, and also just being rich. I guess in a way it's kind of like the spoiled brat kind of thing. So there was a lot of factors into what made Chosen be the way that he was. Kind of thinking that he could rule everything and rip people off, and that he owned everything. That's what I mean. But as we see in Cobra Kai, he changes from that mentality. He now values people and honesty and all of that. So that's really good. Um, the villain in this movie, I'm sorry, I forgot his name. I saw it a few days ago. But the villain in this movie, he is a hothead, but really, I feel like because we do hear that he wasn't always like that. Um, so I feel like it's a mixture of being misguided, just like Johnny, but also just being feeling like he can take everything. So a little bit of like Chosen, and then just also a jerk like the third Karate Kid villain. Um, Thankfully, he's not a robot like Jugi's villains were. So that's good. But yeah, so I feel like he is a very good mix of all of the main villains for the Karate Kids and their movies. And I thought that that was done really well, but also implementing a modern point of view for it as well. And I thought that that was really, really good. So he's kind of a combination of everyone, but then on his own side, he is just extremely, I don't even want to say competitive, but extremely selfish, I think is the best way to say it. And I think that that's his unique trait. And because he is honestly, when we look at Johnny, when we look at Chosen and all the other ones, yeah, a lot of them were threats, such as Chosen, but this dude, he's, I felt like he was probably one of the most brutal um, villains that we had. He's not in it too much. Like he doesn't really interact with Lee too much, and I think that that's a complaint that I have with it. But when they do interact, yeah, this guy he's pretty brutal. He doesn't really hold things back. Just for example, think Chosen at the end of the Karate Kid Part 2. Um, so he's like that. He really does not hold things back. Um, and he's actually a really good fighter. There's this anime moment which I loved so much. It made me think about Dragon Ball Z or Naruto or some other shonen anime where Lee and him are fighting, and he was like, "You know what? If you want to take me on, I'll take you on without even using my hands." And I'm like, "No way they're actually doing this." Like that's not going to actually work in this kind of story. In a anime adaptation or a anime movie, of course it would do. It's cool. It's very cool. Um, but this is like a grounded martial arts movie. So are they actually gonna be doing that? And I was shocked when they did. And I was just like, no way they did this. And they actually made it work. And I'm like, oh crap, that's impressive. Like this dude is really good. Like he was literally just using his legs to fight Lee. And I was just so amazed with it. So I was just thinking like, okay, so I guess what anime shows with some fightings of just using your legs can be applied in real life because it was so well done. Obviously, it's choreographed and it's a movie, but the way that they implemented really is really impressive. It did not really seem cheesy. It only seems cheesy if you watch anime and you know that that's like a trope in like someone trying to prove themselves as being a better fighter. Um, so it seems cheesy like that, but if you don't really watch anime but you like fighting things, and then you see that, you're gonna be really impressed because it was done so good. So yeah, this dude is very brutal, like very, very, very brutal. Um, he's even more of a jerk than the villains from the third movie because like he even like hits his friends. Whereas the villains in the third movie didn't hit each other; they just hit other people. They work together. But this dude literally does not care. He's just very selfish. Just punches anyone in his way. So he is very, very, very dangerous. And I think that they handled that really well from him. And to be honest, I feel like he's a younger Terry Silver. Um, like if you watch Terry in Karate Kid 3, you see how messed up he is, but I think that we really get to see how messed up Terry is during Cobra Kai. So he's like that. This dude is like that, and he's much younger. So imagine how he would be if he's much older. So he can be threatening in that sense. So I liked him a lot as a villain, and yeah, all of the characters I thought was really, really, really good. Even Lee's mom has a little arc in this movie, which was really, really nice as well. It's not the biggest arc; she's barely in the movie, but the little bit that they do with her, I loved how they handled it. It was really, really nice. And then, of course, we have the fights themselves. The fights in this movie is really, really good. I think that it's some of the best that Karate Kid has had, and I loved that a lot. And then for Daniel and Mr. Han, I loved seeing them on screen together, them fighting each other, them training Lee, and it was just so cool to see kung fu and karate in the same thing, and how they tied the Karate Kid from 2010 into this one. I thought it was just so nice, and it was so respectful as well. Um, so I liked that a lot. It was really, really good. But again, that is also part of some of my complaints, which I'll talk about in my spoiler section. Um, and then also, um, in terms of the training, honestly, I think that they could have spent more time training. And this again comes down to part of the pacing issues that I had. In regards to the tournament stuff, the way that they handled tournaments, it's really, really cool. I thought that the tournament was done really well. Um, but it just felt a little fast paced. Like, again, the pacing in the movie, I think, was probably the worst part about it. It just really kept going very, very fast in certain parts, and then in some parts where it shouldn't have been going slow, it was going slow. So I think that the pacing was the biggest issue, but it's not something that would ruin the movie. Again, this is literally my second favorite Karate Kid movie if we join part one and two together. And Karate Kid Project, then it would be third if we put Cobra Kai. So again, I love this movie. So the pacing, yes, it's very fast paced in a lot of parts, but it's really, really fine. Really, I think that the first half of the movie is where the issues with the pacing is more present, because then it makes the second half of the movie really rushed in a lot of parts. So I do think that movie could have been a little bit longer. A lot of people complained about the acting, and honestly, I thought that the acting was fine. I think it was just the love interest that had some little moments where her acting wasn't super good, but those are very few moments. All other parts I thought it was done really, really well. Um, yeah, so I had really no actual issues with the acting. I think a lot of people are just nitpicking on that. Like when I left the theater, there was a bunch of dudes that just kept saying, "Oh, well, that movie was terrible," or like, "Yeah, the acting was terrible as well." And I'm just like, "Are we watching the same movie? Like, the acting was fine. The acting was good. I don't know why you guys are saying that this movie was terrible." and a waste, because it wasn't. There was a lot of good here. So yeah, I don't know what those guys were talking about, but the movie was really enjoyable. And when I was watching it in the theater, I watched it with my family, and because they also all love Cobra Kai, they also all love Karate Kid. We grew up watching it a lot. Um, but yeah, during the final fight, people were clapping and cheering, and it was really, really well done. That final fight in particular was so beautifully filmed, so well done and implemented. And I thought it was really, really good. Like, that was a tense fight. That was a really well done fight. It was very good. It's super predictable, but that's okay because they did it so well. So I loved that. And yeah, I thought that overall they handled a lot of things really good. And going back to the karate and kung fu, so what was really cool is, like, when you watch these movies back to back, you realize the karate movements are a lot more fast and hard and a little bit more grounded and defensive. But then when you watch the Karate Kid 5, as I called it in the review, or the Karate Kid Kung Fu, the one from 2010, when you watch that, you see that the kung fu elements is a lot more flowy, a lot more free and light. And yes, it is fast, but it's a lot more flexible and a lot, like, more, I want to say, organic with the way that things move. So it's really interesting to see the contrast between these two fighting styles. And you see that being implemented in this movie, because you got Mr. Han teaching Lee Kung Fu, and then you got Daniel teaching Lee karate. And I thought that that was very impressive, and like how the two kept arguing with each other a few times too. So I loved that. And you kind of see Lee implementing the techniques for all of those things. And I thought that that was really, really cool. And that touches into the cool thing that they do differently, which I can't say because it's spoilers. So I'll say that in a little bit. And yeah, so I just really loved that aspect. Now, we got to talk about the references. And I think that this is the last big thing to talk about, and it's also the second biggest complaint. We got no mention of anyone from Cobra Kai, from like the kids of Cobra Kai, or what they've been up to. We do get an understanding of what Daniel is up to. Can't really say spoilers for that. Uh, and then we also get a little bit of an understanding of what happened with Johnny. Again, can't say anything because of spoilers. I'll explain that in the spoiler section. So, at least for Daniel and Johnny, we get some understanding of what happened to them after Cobra Kai. Uh, so, for that is fine, but I don't know why they didn't bother mentioning any of the other kids. Why did they not mention Julie from the next Karate Kid? Why did they not even mention Dre from Karate Kid 5? So that is really my biggest complaint, is that they didn't even mention them. They don't need to show them, the other Karate Kids. They don't need to show them. They could have just mentioned it. And I mean, at least even in the next Karate Kid, Daniel had a mention. It was a terrible explanation, but at least he was mentioned. In this one, they didn't mention Robbie. They didn't mention Miguel or Sam or Julie or Dre. And I think that that was a bit upsetting, especially for a movie called Karate Kid Legends. Yes, the Legends part is the two senseis teaching him. Um, but it would have been so nice to get a mention of them. Like Daniel coming and saying to Lee, like, yeah, well, Johnny, he's, like my friend who was my enemy, and then we had to train these kids in karate. And we had differences, just like me and Mr. Han do, but we were able to figure a balance with it. And that's what we're doing with you, finding a balance. And the kids that we train are all doing really good now. And like just, a quick mention. It really makes no sense why mentions weren't made. But then the biggest, I think, disappointing thing is absolutely no mention of Julie and Mr. Miyagi's journey with her. Um, and absolutely no mention from Mr. Han in regards to Dre. Because in the movie, Mr. Han, and you see this in the trailer, so it's not a spoiler, Mr. Han very clearly tells Daniel, Lee means to me what you mean to Mr. Miyagi. So it's like that huge weight of like a father-son relationship. Okay, cool. What happened to Dre? For me, he and Dre had a teacher-student relationship, not really a father-son relationship. Um, and well, honestly, on this one, it comes off more as a uncle-nephew relationship, not really a son and dad relationship um, for Lee and Mr. Han. But still, like Dre meant a lot to Mr. Han. It was his first student, and he, like he could have touched on that. Again, we do not need to see Jaden Smith back as Dre. We just needed to get some a reference of it to know what happened, especially because it's been 15 years. And with Julie, it's been even longer, and they couldn't have mentioned her as well. For the Cobra Kai kids, I can let that slide a little bit because that's a lot more recent, and it only just finished a couple of months ago. And we at least get to know a little bit of what's been happening with in regards to Daniel and Johnny. At least we get a little bit of context about that. But again, it's super small. But hey, it's nice. At least we get some context. So again, I don't mind too much the Cobra Kai kids not being mentioned as opposed to Dre and Julie. I think those two 100% should have been mentioned. And I do also think, for the other kids, they should have been mentioned as well. So that is the one thing that really disappointed me on top of the pacing and the, not as much time we get to spend with Mr. Han and Daniel. Everything else about this movie was really fantastic. It was really, really well done. Actually, and then just for context, so recently the director, I think it was the director, came out and explained why Dre isn't in the movie. And again, Dre does not need to be in the movie, but a mention of him would be important. And I can't really go into spoilers too much. Because again, this is also the first time we see Mr. Han in 15 years, so I wish we got a little bit more backstory on what he had been up to during that time. Because we see something, and it's very impressive, but it's just like, okay, you are very clearly in a very good place, and I'm so proud of you and so happy for you. Like Mr. Han in this movie is just full on Jackie Chan, being funny, being relaxed. Like Mr. Han, I am so proud of him for really overcoming so much grief and pain. And you can really tell that working with Dre helped him a lot. So I love that, but I wish we got some more backstory for what happened to Mr. Han in between, Karate Kid 5 and this movie. Because we have no mentions of Mr. Han throughout Cobra Kai. So, it would have been nice. And again, this goes down to something that the director said in regards to Dre, that well, Dre's character wouldn't fit in this movie, so that's why we kind of didn't include him or really make a mention, because this is Lee's story. But Dre is still canon to the story and still important to Mr. Han's journey. That's around, paraphrasing what the director or the writer said about Dre's absence. Okay, so if he's canon still, which of course he is, because he was in the movie, in Karate Kid 5. So why, and if he was important to Mr. Han's journey to how we see him now, why is he not mentioned? Because he really needed to be mentioned, given that Mr. Han appears after 15 years. So Julie is a little bit more excusable for that because there's really no big connections with Julie. But Dre and the other Karate Kids from Cobra Kai definitely all should have been mentioned because they're, more recent, and they also have a huge impact on the story of these two senseis. So I do think that that was a bit upsetting. But yeah, overall though, those were my complaints, but I still love this movie a lot. I want to watch it again, and especially because the people right behind me, they were making dumb comments throughout the whole movie, and it's not like they were talking throughout the movie. I mean, they were literally just making dumb comments. Like when one character says something, they're like, then the people behind me were just like repeating it in a mocking kind of way, and then just started laughing. So like they were just being jerks, I guess. And ironically, it's the same ones that said that the movie was terrible. So, yeah, I do want to rewatch it. Um, and I'll probably rewatch it with my mom because she loves Karate Kid as well, but she wasn't able to join us for when we went to watch that one. And probably with my cousins as well, I'll probably watch that. Um, but yeah, this movie was amazing. The theater was clapping during the final fight, and there's so many beautiful filmed scenes in this movie, so I really really loved it a lot. um, Overall, oh, and the music, and I was so excited when they started playing some songs here because they actually used some of Kavinsky's music in this movie, and that was just so cool to hear. Kavinsky is he's a DJ. He's friends with Daft Punk, and so he kind of makes electronic music similar in tone to Daft Punk and similar in tone to M83. So hearing his music in this movie was super super cool to hear. Um, but yeah, I loved that they included that, and it's also just because it's his music isn't really played here in the West very often. Like the big song he has is Night Call, and I discovered that by accident on YouTube. But I guess everyone else discovered it through the movie Drive because it's in the opening scene of that movie. Night Call is not played in Karate Kid Legends, so but other Kavinsky songs are. Yeah, and then I watched it Drive. I thought it was just okay. I think it's overrated. Um, but yeah, point is, I was excited that they had some Kavinsky music in this movie, and it kind of gives him a more audience as well, like people hearing his song worldwide through this movie. And I thought that that's really well deserved too, because it's really, really cool. I do think out of Daft Punk and M83, he's the worst one, but not in he's not bad. I'm just saying like I'd still rather be listening to Daft Punk and M83 than Kavinsky, but Kavinsky makes some really good music too. So I definitely recommend listening to his music as well. So yeah, this movie was fantastic. Let me know what you all think about it. For those of you that don't want to stick for spoilers, this is not going to be the spoiler section. It's really just going to be the things I couldn't talk about. And it's going to give a little bit more context as to my complaints with the movie and my praises as well. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. If you don't want the spoilers, please rate, comment, subscribe. I'll talk to you later. And for those of you that are sticking for the spoilers, let's just jump straight into the spoilers section starting now. So the big thing that they do at the very beginning that they didn't really do before in any Karate Kid story is that Lee is actually the sensei in this movie for the first half of it. And I thought that was really interesting because this is supposed to be the Karate Kid we're following, but no, he's teaching his girlfriend's dad, who's a boxer, how to fight with kung fu. So I loved that they mixed kung fu and boxing into this movie, and that was really really cool. Just like they end up mixing karate and kung fu later in the movie. So I love that they did that, and it really makes you think of like actual like mixed martial arts, different styles. And boxing is totally different from kung fu and karate. So it's like while kung fu and karate can have like a similar path with them and movement, boxing is going to be something totally different. So it might be a little bit harder for a boxer to learn kung fu than someone who does karate, in my opinion. Um, so it was just really, really cool to see that. And I love that a lot. So again, that's not a complaint. I love it that they did that different aspect of it. But that leads into the pacing issue because half of the movie is that it's Lee training her dad kung fu. And again, that's cool. But then in your mind, you're watching this movie thinking, where's Mr. Han? And where is especially Daniel? Because Mr. Han is at the very beginning of the movie. But then that's it, just the very beginning. Then Lee moves to the US. And then there's nothing of Mr. Han until, well, we do see him in one scene during a phone call, but nothing of Daniel for half of the movie. Um, and as soon as Mr. Han comes to the US, it's after Lee's girlfriend's dad gets sent to the hospital. And again, I liked his girlfriend. I thought that she was done pretty well, a good acting on it. But my complaint is that she clearly saw that Lee was being traumatized about her dad being taken to the hospital. And instead, she just gets mad at him. Again, I get it. You know, your dad is being taken to the hospital. Your boyfriend's there freaking out. Well, at that time, they weren't a couple, but, you know, he's there freaking out. And he doesn't go into the hospital when you're saying you need him there for support. And he just doesn't. And then you just ghost him for most of the rest of the movie until the ending. So I think they could have just changed that a little bit. That's really my only complaint with her, is just the reaction with that. And also Lee just could have just talked with her. So I think that that drama in the moment was okay, because obviously she's thinking like, why aren't you coming? My dad is almost dying. Like, yes, she could be upset. But why didn't she bother to ask, why didn't you come? Or why didn't she, or sorry, why didn't Lee just try to apologize to her as well and just say like, look, I'm sorry, I didn't go in, I panicked because my brother died, he was killed. And we do hear about that in the very start of the movie, but you don't really understand what Lee's mom means by that, that she's already lost one son to Kung Fu. But then we see the flashback. So I loved that they implemented that because Lee has traumas. He watched his son, his brother, older brother, be killed, and his brother pleading for him to help him, and Lee was just frozen and couldn't move. And yeah, so that's why Lee needs to be focusing a lot, because this traumatized him so much. And so again, I love the way that they handled Lee. I thought that it was done really well, and it adds a trauma that none of the other Karate Kids know. So yeah, I thought that that was really, really, really well done. But again, the pacing is the issue here, because half of the movie it's Lee being a sensei, which again I love, but Mr. Han and Daniel are not a focus. And then they come, but then the training montage is super rushed. And there isn't really a lot of it. I do like what they do with the training though. When we see it, it's amazing. And again, Daniel and Mr. Han together training is so cool, but I wish we got more of that. I wish that Daniel and Mr. Han fought more, because they only fight like two like quick times, super quick, and it's just to show Lee something. And then there's one time where they fight together, people trying to hurt Lee, but that's also super quick. Again, I know that Jackie Chan is, I think, in his 70s or something like that, and that he still did all his own stunts. But I love Jackie Chan, and I'm really glad that we got to see Jackie Chan being Jackie Chan himself, you know, like his wackiness, his laid backness, like it's just Jackie Chan being funny. And the fighting that he does in this movie is just still so creative. And sorry, I'm jumping all over the place. We'll talk about Mr. Han soon. But I just wish that, we got to see more of Daniel and Mr. Han interacting, because their interactions are super fast when they're training Lee. And the way that they train him is like across a couple of days, and it's like kind of split up. So like they start training him, and then we see matches, and then it flashes back to them training him, and then we see matches. So again, the pacing on the final section is super fast because of the beginning portion where they wanted to have Lee be a teacher. And that's fine, but they really should have shortened that. Like, a lot of the events that happened in that first half of the movie could have been condensed or happened with Mr. Han and Daniel being present. So really, I just think that they could have had the training a little bit more. I get that the story they were trying to tell was, Lee's not supposed to be doing fighting anymore. So it makes sense that Mr. Han and Daniel couldn't be there, but they could have had the Five Boroughs tournament pop up a lot sooner, and Lee's girlfriend's dad getting hurt a lot sooner, like by 20 minutes, and have Mr. Han and Daniel come into the movie a lot sooner. So that way we would get a lot more time with them together. We would get more time for a reference or a mention of the other Karate Kids, and we would get to know more about what they've been up to overall. Um, and I think it really would have made the connection with Lee and Mr. Han and Daniel a lot more impactful, because Daniel is just kind of like, hey, yeah, I'm just here, just to help you real quick. Um, but again, when you see the two of them there on screen, they work so well. You think that from their first meeting in Mr. Miyagi's house that it's just gonna be like there might not, Daniel is just kind of gonna be there. But then when you actually see them interacting when Daniel is in California, and you're like, why didn't they put more of this? These two together are so cool. I just really, really wish we got to see more of them together because they're so funny. Think of like Johnny and Daniel when they're getting along and not being mad at each other, but with a huge cultural difference, and it just works so well. So like for example, one part that I liked is that Daniel was like, okay, Mr. Han, you're gonna fight with Lee on three. Go easy on him, please. One, and then Mr. Han just starts fighting right at one, and then he just goes all out, and then Lee's just like, what? So Lee's caught totally off guard, and then he was like, Mr. Han, what? Take it easy on him. He's just learning. And Mr. Han's like, what? He's, during the fight, he's not gonna be learning. And it's not like they're arguing, they're just joking with each other. So that's what I mean. It's like Daniel with Johnny, but instead of arguing, it's just them joking off with each other, calling each other's attentions on things, and but being so respectful with each other at the same time, and then just making jokes with each other. Like, I love their interactions so much. And Lee's reaction is like, oh, great, now there's two of them. Because they're both the same way in a couple of ways. So I just loved that a lot. And that's really just my complaint. I just wish we got more of it, but the pacing is what was the issue here, the big issue, because that leads to no mentions of the other Karate Kids. That leads to a very fast training montage. It leads to a very quick development with the three of them together. Even Lee's girlfriend kind of takes a step back during the second half of the movie. So I just really wish that the beginning half was a little bit better paced, because honestly, throughout the whole movie, I just kept thinking, where's Daniel and Mr. Han? Because I thought they were going to be in the movie a lot more. But then when you see them in the movie, it's just amazing. So it's so fun. And I also love that when Mr. Han goes to visit Daniel, we actually do get to see Mr. Miyagi through a photo. And I thought that was really nice. It's Mr. Miyagi with Mr. Han. And then he talks, I think it was in Karate Kid 1 or 2, something like that. think it was in Karate Kid 1, Mr. Han makes a reference to either Karate Kid 1 or Karate Kid 2. I think it is Karate Kid 1, where he was in the US and visiting Mr. Miyagi. Obviously, we didn't see that, but it was happening during the event of the Karate Kid movies. So I loved that they included that. They treated Mr. Han or Mr. Miyagi with respect, and I really, really loved that. And I loved that it was one of my theories, and that other people had a theory of as well, that Mr. Han's family is the family that took Mr. Miyagi's ancestor and taught him kung fu, which he turned into karate. So I love that the families had always been connected for thousands of years at that point, or hundreds of years. So I love that we get to hear about that, and the most special part with that is that it is told by Mr. Miyagi. Obviously, it's not actually him. I don't know how they used his voice. It could have been AI or just someone that sounded very similar to him. But I feel like it was done with respect. And it was basically Mr. Miyagi. We see that them in Karate Kid Part 2, where Mr. Miyagi is explaining the history of karate in Okinawa. And then they kind of like extend that, and I love like the animation that they put on it. It's really, really beautiful too. And they kind of extend it to have more dialogue, which did not exist in the original movie, but it still sounds like Mr. Miyagi talking. So it is either someone that sounds like him, because you know there are people that sound like other people, or it's AI. But the way again it was done was so respectful and really adds to the essence of it. So I like to headcanon or think that that particular extended part is Mr. Miyagi just explaining that story in more detail to Daniel when they get back to the US at some point, or at some point when they're in Japan just off screen. It obviously did not happen in that scene because we see that scene in full, and it's just Mr. Miyagi showing him around things, and he doesn't mention that, and then they kind of train, I think. But so yeah, I think that at one point Daniel asked him to know more about the ancestor and what happened, and Mr. Miyagi just kind of repeats the same thing and then explains a little bit further. So I thought that that was nice. And then the other thing I was going to say, what was the other thing I was going to say? I'm trying to remember here. Yes, with Mr. Han. So that is the other complaint with the pacing, because as I said, Mr. Han is happy. He's outgoing, he's relaxed now, he's calm, he's making jokes. He's Jackie Chan being Jackie Chan. And we didn't really get to see that in the Karate Kid 5. Mr. Han in that movie is very down, very depressed. And you know, like very, very somber, and Dre helps him through that. So I personally wish that we got at least some mention of Dre or of what happened to Mr. Han throughout 2010 and 2025, because Mr. Han is in such a much better place, and I'm so happy for him. But the biggest thing is that he has a freaking giant school for Kung Fu now. Like a huge school. And it's the school that Lee goes to. So we get the backstory of how Lee is traumatized about his brother and how they trained under Mr. Han. Why do we not get the backstory of how Mr. Han built this whole school, considering how we see him at the end of the movie that he was last in? So that's just again a complaint with that. If they really needed to work on that pacing. But the movie works really well, and I really, really love the movie a lot. So I'm really excited to watch it again. Those are my spoiler thoughts on it. Again, it's more in-depth context into my complaints and my praises with it. But yeah, this movie was amazing, guys. So if you haven't watched The Karate Kid Legends, please watch it. It is so fun and great music, great action. The characters are all great too. And it's just so cool. So yeah, guys, that is my spoiler section of this movie review. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what is your favorite Karate Kid movie or content. If you prefer the show Cobra Kai over any of the movies. But yeah, let me know what you like the most about the Karate Kid universe. Okay, and with all that said, guys, rate, comment, subscribe. I'll talk to you later. Have a good night.